You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, a very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. My name is Edmond, Kizito, your host. On Spectrum tonight, what is the East African Community Secretariat doing about bottlenecks hampering business? Uganda will tomorrow host a forum for chief executive officers from across the East African community to discuss how to improve the regional integration process and the business environment among the 5 states. This meeting is being hosted by the Secretary General of the East African Community, Dr. Richard Sezibera, and among other issues, the discussions will center on the implementation of the Customs Union, the East African Community Common Market, and the implementation of the East African Community infrastructure plans to lower the cost of doing business. It has been repeatedly emphasized that there are several advantages of integration, such as deepening of trade, elimination of barriers, investing in joint projects, including in infrastructure, among others. Despite these perceived benefits, many people still point to the fact that the East African community integration process faces high hurdles, including failure by partner states to implement decisions by their heads of state. Ugandan traders have in the recent past made several demands after realizing that some protocols signed previously were not being implemented as expected. There have also been concerns about artificial barriers that continue to affect businesses, given the fact that Uganda is a landlocked country. The East African Community Secretariat is charged, among other issues, with monitoring the implementation of decisions taken at all levels, and also with designing programs and projects that can ensure that the integration process stays on track. The meeting in Kampala comes at a time when Kenya, which is one of the original founders of the East African community, is going through a national election. In the year 2007, all East African community countries were affected by the violence that erupted following a disputed poll at the time. In Uganda, the cost of fuel and other commodities rapidly shot up. So tonight we'll look at the efforts being undertaken to deal with the bottlenecks, hampering business, and other aspects that are critical to the reintegration process. Our guests tonight, Ambassador Dr. Richard Sezibera, Secretary General of the East African Community. We expect him to join us shortly. Mr. Andrew Luze, Executive Director of the East African Business Council. We expect him to join us shortly as well. And Mr. Gideon Badagawa, Executive Director of the Private Sector Foundation, Uganda. He too is on his way to this place. In the meantime, I'd like to open this discussion to you, dear listeners, to tell us what you think you really would like to know. But broadly, some of the things that we'll be looking at is how far we've been able to go in reviving the East African community. The East African community existed before. Originally, it was called the East African Common Services Organization. It collapsed in 1977 in acrimony. Kenya could not agree with Tanzania over ideological or economic ideology. Kenya was perceived by Tanzania as a hardcore capitalist country, while Kenya thought Tanzania was too socialist and they could not grow their economy with that ideology. Julius Nyerere was president in Tanzania, founding president. Jomo Kenyatta was president in Kenya, was the founding president, and at one time they exchanged sharp words. Tanzanians called Kenya a man-eat-man society, while Kenya called Tanzania a man-eat-nothing society. But both leaders could not agree with Mr. Idi Amin Dada, who was the president in Uganda at that time. In the end, 2 years before Amin fell, the community was torn apart. There were common services that were shared by the 3 countries. The 3 countries took what they had at the time. What if an agency had its headquarters in that country kept that agency. For instance, Uganda had the headquarters of the East African Railways. It kept the Uganda Railways, which was robust for quite some time. It had the headquarters for the East African Development Bank, which it ended up keeping. The bank still survives. The only agency that continued to work even after the community collapsed. Kenya had the East African Airways, and so it took Kenya. It was rebranded the Kenya Airways. It's still one of the biggest airlines, not only in the East African region, but on the African continent, alongside others like Ethiopian Airways and South African Airlines. Tanzania had the harbors, the East African harbors, and they kept that advantage. Some of the things we'll be looking at. You can call in now though and ask questions. They'll be answered when these three guests of ours come in. One of them is Ambassador Dr. Richard Sezibera, Secretary General of the East African Community in town for this meeting. Our number is 0414-348-111, 0312-260-390, or 0312-261-390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you're calling from. Spectrum, hello? Yes, sir, your name?
How are you, my brother?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
My name is John.
John, yes?
I'm very excited to follow the discussion today about the community. And particularly, I'm interested in the controversy that's going on about the common external tariff. As we speak now, the East African countries are compelled by the protocol to enforce external tariff. But if you look at Kenya and Tanzania, they are applying theirs with a lot of restraints. Whereas Uganda, like you described, you said, the audience said, Kenyans were man eats man. Uganda, I think, has demonstrated a lot of hunger for taxes. They don't mind about protecting the industries. If the Kenyan industries import raw materials from without the East African common markets, they are not paying taxes. They come and add value to those commodities or those products in Kenya. When they import it to Uganda, Uganda applies taxes. Far away from the common external tariff, like it was agreed in the protocol. Now, this controversy has made competitiveness for Ugandan industries and manufacturers extremely tight on the East African market. I would like to know from the guests in the studio today as to what the area is doing to make sure that we have that harmony in respect to the East African common tariff, East African common market, in respect to external tariff. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulima. That question will be answered when the guests get here. As I was saying, this is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. What is the East African Community Secretariat doing about bottlenecks hampering business? It's a wide field, but we'll try to cover it. I was saying before, there are 4 pillars of reintegration. The first one has been passed, the second one has been passed. 2 remain. We have the East African Common Market. We also have the East African Customs Union. What we are left with is the East African Monetary Union, which is supposed to have been actualized last year, the year 2012. It wasn't possible. The political union was supposed to come online in the year 2015. It was supposed to be one country, the Republic of East Africa, or wherever. Spectrum, hello?
Edmond.
Yes, sir, your name?
I think I continue to get you. My name is Gideon.
Yes, continue, sir.
I know our guests are taking some time to get the studio.
Yes, sir.
But I think, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing in this topic. Because at this point in time, we are talking about almost the third segment of the protocol or the common market. First of all, we haven't even domesticated this protocol. I've been always arguing about this matter. I'm saying, when shall we domesticate this matter and even make it, local, have the local contents? In Uganda, for example, when you talk about the East African, community, people look at it as something really hanging in the air. It is really not felt here. 2, in terms of competitiveness, Uganda very serious disadvantage. Now just look at the opening to movement of free movement of goods, services and labor. If you look at now the hotel industry in Uganda, all of it is flooded with personnel serving there and working there who are from outside Uganda. Today, Uganda is trying to emphasize on system education, which is quite archaic. The only fashion syllabus, they are trying to put a lot of energy in universities. Kenya, which retains the old traditional style of training skills, has taken over the whole labor market right now as we speak in Uganda myself. And you agree with me that one of the fastest moving, one of the fastest growing industries still remains the hotel industry. Look at the service sector as well. By size, in terms of employment, in terms of contribution to GDP, and so on. The service industry is growing faster than even the industry on the certain sector. Now, look at Uganda now, what about the rest of Uganda? What the rest of Uganda is agriculture. Agriculture, what we produce is exported in raw. Can we look at the cost of doing business in the East African region, particularly, in respect to transport, in respect to energy, in respect to access to financial credit, and so on? So really, the topic that you have brought tonight is a very interesting one, and maybe our guests have taken long to arrive in the studio. We would have liked to engage them much more, particularly when we have the Secretary General of this African community. We would like to go in depth and understand how we are going to hold forts so that we don't crumble like it was during the time that you have been liberating. It would have been so old that in Uganda had it been then. But I mean, even if we had another president who had a different ideology from what was holding, particularly given the difference between Kenya and Tanzania, probably this could have crumbled. Now, have we learned lessons from that history? Are we really demonstrating that we have learned something and not forgotten all of it? Can we really be very conscious where we are moving? Is it a question of hunger for money without due attention to growth in particular economies? I think as we move along, if we don't take a lot of due diligence and take a lot of keen interest in this matter, you may find Uganda moving along but not being part of the beneficiary of the East African arrangement. I want to rest my case by saying, where is Ugandan attempts, for example, into reviving the railway system? Long ago when I was studying even in P5, they will tell you the cheapest mode of transport is sea followed by railway. So then you can imagine what we're still struggling with. Struggling with, putting up the minimum and maybe, we're looking at axle, road, we're looking at weight, we're looking at what. But struggling with all these roads are crumbling all the time because they cannot hold the weight, that's the reach. If we wanted to promote the fact that we are landlocked, as opposed to Tanzania and Kenya, we should be thinking about here building infrastructure in the very first place. But you can reduce the cost of doing business. Now, for example, today we are afraid of the outcome. The outcome of the elections in Kenya. We are now thinking of changing and going to Tanzania. You look at the distance from Mombasa to Kampala, as against one, we're now going for the farthest distance. Okay, that's just precautionary. But if we had railway, for example, that would be one of the modest means of transport. And then I would be a company zone. Therefore, I'm unfortunate that this time the student already have a group of families.
They've not yet arrived, we still expect them there on their way.
They were there. And I want you to put this to the separate general of the South African community. That the fears which you are just liberating are also sufficing even as it speaks now. They are not at the same level or the same tone like you have been there. Players could be quiet. But it doesn't take that long to know it comes there. Let's look at what we've done. This is a private sector corporate economy. Governments have withdrawn from participation in the economy. They only success in the macroeconomic environment and putting up social security to make sure that there is rights. But those people who are coming here and putting their money, I will speak now. I will tell you right now, custom law in Uganda has been manufacturer. Today, all manufactured goods in Kenya, which have up to about 80% of the important components of raw materials, coming now into Uganda, how great are you? Now, the difference is that the difference when it comes to Kenya and Tanzania. The sort of war talks about investment to revolution of food. Food, for example, right, before in Tanzania, 15 different treatment. I propose what is in Uganda. So really, in my own view, I think we have a lot of issues.
Yes.
That need to be organized.
Yes.
In respect to fostering the East African customs union. If we are going to move at this stage, I'm very sure now other countries are looking at that lot of countries. Our positioning is not exactly the forecast that was betted out. So we must here be very conscious of our own industry, our local industry, bearing in mind that we're operating at disadvantage. Because number one, we are landlocked, as compared to Uganda, having Kenya. Number two, the cost of business in Uganda is by far high compared to Kenya and Tanzania. Just look at transport, look at electricity, look at access to financing and the rest of it. So I want to ask you when those guys come in to engage them very seriously and let them explain to Uganda what exactly we think should be left forward in respect to some of these external
All right, thank you very much. Hello, Spectrum, hello?
Hello, Edmond.
Yes, sir, how are you?
Good evening.
Good evening, your name again?
My name is Edmond.
Yes, Mr. Chin.
Calling from Kampala.
Yes.
Edmond, my question is not exactly to the Secretary General of the East African Community, but to the Energy Minister of Uganda. I'm really starting to learn that we have elections there. We knew about the Kenyan elections 5 years ago.
Spectrum, hello. This is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. What is the East African Community Secretariat doing about bottlenecks hampering trade? Our expected guests, they're still on their way into the studio. Ambassador Dr. Richard Sezibera, Secretary General of the East African Community, Rwanda National. He was formerly Ambassador for a Special Envoy to the Great Lakes region for President Paul Kagame of Rwanda. Mr. Andrew Luze, Executive Director of the East African Business Council, and Mr. Gideon Badagawa, Executive Director of the Private Sector Foundation. Will be exploring some of the issues pertaining to the community. There has been a slowdown in meeting the 4 targets that were set. I was talking about earlier, the East African Monetary Union, who was supposed to have one currency. We had one before in the early 60s, and the period just before we had a single currency. After graduating from the pound and the rupees previously, they're trying to get it back working. The deadline was the year 2012. Now it's not even clear. Some people are talking about 2015 or even 2017. One of the things that is likely to happen is the central banks will be downgraded to currency centers, national currency centers, or whatever they will call them. Later, we're supposed to have a political union. That's by the year 2015. Probably it's not going to happen. It will probably be pushed back a little bit, maybe to 2017 or sometime after that. That means we'll have one central government. The details are yet to be worked out. We expect our guests, and we'll talk about some of the things that have been done so far. What are some of the major roadblocks, issues pertaining? There have been complaints, especially from Rwanda, partly from Uganda as well, about non-tariff barriers, especially from countries that border the Indian Ocean. Uganda and Rwanda are landlocked. Burundi is also landlocked. So certain issues have been pertaining, issues are being raised. They have advantages in Kenya, advantages in Tanzania over their access to the sea. Some of the issues that have been mentioned, the possibility of having joint projects, specifically in infrastructure development. There has been talk about having a joint refinery to refine all the oil in the region. A difficult one, because Uganda wants to have its own refinery. South Sudan probably needs its own refinery. They are working in collaboration with Kenya on the possibility of a joint refinery in Lamu, the port of Lamu, up there in the Indian Ocean. That's one of the things that have been spoken about. They've spoken about the Great Highway, East African Highway, as another possible joint project, and funding could come from the East African Development Bank, which is the only institution that continued working even after the community collapsed in acrimony in 1977. The African Development Bank has said it's interested, it's committed a certain amount of money to joint projects, infrastructure projects. It's a small amount, not too much, but that money could help create a seed fund for these joint infrastructure projects. Other things that have been mentioned include energy. There's been talk about an energy pool for East Africa. Uganda has very low capacity, large need for power, but only a capacity for about 5,000 megawatts for hydroelectric power. There are options that are still being explored, including nuclear. Nuclear is only run by South Africa and Nigeria on the African continent. Ethiopia, which is outside of the East African community, is far ahead of Uganda and Kenya. They have developed, they're putting in place a hydroelectric power plant, a large dam that's supposed to generate electricity. They've already signed a contract with Kenya to buy their electricity. There's an interconnection line for that electricity with Kenya. Some electricity in Kenya comes from Uganda, but Uganda's capacity has been curtailed. We upped our production capacity to around about 800 megawatts. It's still not enough for us because demand grows first every year. You can call in our numbers 0414 as we wait for the guests. 0414 348 111, 0312 260390, 0312 261390. We'll talk about those things as the guests come. You can call in and ask those questions. They will be responded to when the guests come. Our expected guests: Ambassador Dr. Richard Sezibera, Secretary General of the East African Community; Mr. Andrew Luze, Executive Director of the East African Business Council; Mr. Gideon Badagawa, Executive Director of the Private Sector Foundation, Uganda. One of the hot topics right now is the Kenyan election. They go to the polls on Monday to elect 47 county governments and the national government. How will it affect us? In 2007, very well. Thanks. Your name? Yes, Chris.
I just wanted to find out
That question will be answered even as we wait for our guests. Our numbers 0414-348-111, 0312-260-390, 0312-261-390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you're calling from as we wait for our guests tonight. As I was saying, the election in Kenya in 2007, that's just about 5 years ago, disrupted trade. About 1,200 people were killed in inter-ethnic tribal violence along the Kenyan-Uganda highway. The highway feeds other countries, including the DRC, Rwanda, and Burundi. Burundi, a lot of... Alright, Spectrum, hello? We have a caller on the line. Hello? Yes, sir, your name?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, your name?
My name is Derek.
Yes, Derek.
And I'm putting forward my question about the East African community. My problem is on the East African community or the East African population on paper. I want to break it down. When will the common man, you and I, and some other person going to understand the federation? Thank you.
Okay, Spectrum, hello? You are last question we put to our guests as soon as they get in. Our number 0. Let's take a break right now. We'll be back after the break. Do stay tuned.
Excuse me, what is this 300 shillings on my bill for?
That is for the tinted candles, madam.
And this 100 shillings?
That is for the air conditioning.
And this 200 shillings?
For the blue walls, ma'am.
I can't believe this!
Why pray for what you don't use or ask for? That's why we at Standard Chartered are introducing the Easy Go account, the first current account of its kind that gives you complete control of your banking charges. For more details, visit a Standard Chartered branch or call 0414-340077.
Would you like to leave me a tip, please? You are losing your MTN number if you don't register by the 28th of February 2013. They are going to cut it off with Papa, and you'll be there. Contactless, numberless, identityless. Basically, you'll be finished. Do you know what it means when you lose the number you have had for years? The number everyone knows. Kati, if I were you, I would go and register now. The time is up. Go and register now. I said register before the 28th of February 2013. Register now.
Make time now and register your MTN SIM cards before 28th of February 2013. Dial *197# to check your registration status.
MTN. Everywhere you go.
There are those who sit around waiting for things to happen. But then there are those who make things happen. Take a closer look. While some people follow trends, there are those who set them. While many people dream of what could be, there are those who make their dreams a reality. While some people make a name for themselves, there are those who also leave a legacy. These people have a unique drive that enables them to make things happen. And they all choose a beer that has a unique ingredient, crystal malt, releasing the richer, full flavor that makes Nile Gold Uganda's true premium lager. Nile Gold, beyond the ordinary.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight. What is the East African Community Secretariat doing about bottlenecks hampering business? Our guests tonight, still expected, Ambassador Dr. Richard Sezibera, Secretary General of the East African Community, Mr. Andrew Luze, Executive Director of the East African Business Council, and Mr. Gideon Badagawa, Executive Director of the Private Sector Foundation, Uganda. You two can call in and contribute to this discussion even as we wait for them. Our numbers 0414-348-111, 0312-260-390, 0312-261-390. In the meantime, we're going to be talking to an official from Kizito. Kizito is the Traders Federation, National Traders Federation. Kizito. We'll be talking to Mr. Issa Sechito, who is a spokesperson for that agency. In the meantime, you can call in now. Our number is 0414-348-111, 031-226-0390, Some of the pertinent issues: the election in Kenya on Monday, they go to the polls. It's been anticipated that there will be no violence, but just in case violence comes, what will Uganda do and the other countries that depend on this artery for their trade goods delivered? Mr. Sezibera, you're welcome to Spectrum.
Hello, thank you, my brother.
Does the East African Community Federation make sense to you people in the trade fraternity? Is it something that has been sold to you? Do you understand it? The people, do they understand? Does it make sense to them at all?
I'm sorry to laugh at this, but the ordinary members of Kizito, this thing called the East African Community, is something that they look at as the effective kind of strategy where people plan, run things, apart from very, very, very few things that seem to have been material. The rest of the protocols are really beautiful thinking. I will tell you that the traders and the problems they go through at the port of Uganda, to mention but a few, make this whole thing of East African community a nightmare. I will tell you that this is 1st of January 2005, when the East African Community Customs Management Act started operating. We thought that the port of Mombasa, the port of Dar es Salaam, all the facilities that we use when we are entering East Africa would belong to all of us. Therefore, you would assume to have a right if the ship docked at Mombasa, and the way you will be treated more or less be the same as the Kenyan is treated. But you ask the Ugandans, how much of their goods have been auctioned at the port of Mombasa? How literally the Kenyans have been treating us without reference to the protocol? How we lost the boat during the Kenyan auction in 2007, December, up to the 5 years down the road. They are promising to pay. They send the diplomatic note to the ministry here of foreign affairs that are willing to compensate the property. As we speak, not even $1 out of the so many dollars that they have lost in the form of books and the fact that they have won during their election. And now they are saying, please wait. We don't know that we might go into a reland of an election. We didn't put it on. You shall provide money to use. All these issues don't seem to be of a preliminary community where Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi belong to the same protocol. Leave alone that. All the other non-tariff barriers, we have been mentioning non-tariff barriers from day one of the community up to today, but one barrier after the other, the non-tariff barrier comes in and out. So clearly, when I'm to answer you, the trading community, the one I speak for, has not seen very much profit that realized in the East African Community Protocol.
All right, talk to us about what you would expect. The people that you represent, you speak for, what would they expect when they talk about these things?
I think what the expect is that in the recently, I think this week or last week, we had in Kenya saying, no, don't bring your sugar here. If I cannot sell what I produce here, despite the fact that it has been detected by the agreed protocol that the respective bureaus of standards of the respective countries, as long as they pass the standard of the product, then that product will be consumable within the community. If you come out and say, please,
specifically sugar, before we move to something else. Kenya expects a shortage in production this year. Tanzania expects a shortfall in their production. Why would they be blocking sugar coming from a neighboring country? Is there something that you can decipher? Is a sweet thing. Let's stay with it just a little bit longer. There is a possibility that Kenya and Tanzania are more interested in importing sugar from Mauritius. They have a higher proficiency rate in their extraction of their sugar. They have sugar beet, but also their sugar cane is also, gives a higher productivity. 1 to 6, Uganda is 1 to 10. Do you think they could be, they could prefer importing sugar from Mauritius rather than from Uganda? Seem to have lost Mr. Isa Sejita. We'll try and get back to him to talk to us a little bit more about the bottlenecks that traders face, Ugandan traders face, as they trade within this Pacific East African community. The customs union was passed years ago. We also have a common market. That should mean borderless trade. There are still barriers that remain. NTBs. There was an argument about the axle limit of trucks. Some trucks were not allowed to pass through Kenyan roads because they were too heavy. Officials there said they damaged their roads. You can still call in and contribute to this discussion. Our number is 041-4348-111, 031-226-0390, 031-226-1390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. As we wait for our guest, we expect the Secretary General of the East African Community, if he's able to make it, he'll be able to talk to us, he'll be able to answer your questions. Spectrum, hello. Good evening, your name? You can still call in and contribute to this discussion. Our number is 041-4348-111, 031-226-0390, 031-226-1390. We've just been joined by one of our guests. You're most welcome, Mr. Andrew Luze.
Thank you very much.
You managed to make it eventually into the studio. We still expect Ambassador Dr. Richard Sezibera, Secretary General of the East African Community. Mr. Luze, you're Executive Director of the East African Business Council. What has blocked the East African Monetary Union from being actualized? As you talk to us about the other bottlenecks that remain despite having the customs union and the common market.
Yeah, I think if you refer to the monetary union, there are other steps in the integration process. You have the customs union, you have the common market. So before you move to the monetary union, there's several steps you have to clarify to put in place the several conditions which you have to be put in place so for you to attend the monetary union. Because if you look at monetary union, you have issues of fiscal policy, harmonization. You have issues of taxation.
How do you share the taxes?
Without even harmonizing domestic taxes in the region. You have issues of monetary policy. How do you harmonize the monetary policy? How do you harmonize the exchange rate policy? There are so many conditions. Yeah. The macroeconomic conditions, are they in harmony in the region? So before you move to a certain level, I think there are several issues you have to sort out before you attain that particular level of a monetary union. Because we don't want to replicate what's happening in the European Union. We have to really say, what is the debt GDP ratio you're setting? Is it the same ratio you're setting for Burundi? Is it the same ratio you're setting for Kenya? There are some of the convergence criteria has to be sorted out before you move to such level. Thank you very much.
So it's a complex web of issues, and if it eventually takes, or we thought originally we would have a monetary union in the 2012. Would that be the paper document, or would we have hard currency, coins and banknotes last year?
I think there are several steps. Even if you have a monetary union protocol signed, it doesn't mean that after signing it is implementation.
Right.
No, I think there are several steps. You can start with the monetary institute. We can start with maybe an accounting unit. Even if you don't have the currency, so you say, okay, we have an accounting unit. If I'm dealing in Kenya, I know
you could call it the East African shilling.
Yeah, that is it.
But it's not banknotes and
banknotes.
Like the euro happened at the start.
Yeah, I think those are the processes you have to go through. But East Africa, we had one time ago, we had one currency.
Yes.
But that was in a different setting. Yeah, it's a different. The political setting was different from the current setting. I don't think, yes, we can borrow from what happened that particular period, but this time we have to be very careful, learning from other regions what has happened.
Let's talk about some of the bottlenecks that persist despite having the common market and the customs union. From your own experience, you come from the regional business council.
Yeah, I think the issues are one of the issues affecting the actualization of the integration process. The non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers is a critical issue. Issues of standards. You have a country which has 6,000 standards, another country is having 1,000 standards.
Kenya has 6,000, Uganda has 1,000.
Yeah. So when are you going to harmonize that process? So if milk is moving from one area to the other, it's okay. Yes, we know we don't have that standard. So the issue of standards is an issue. The issue of roadblocks is an issue. The issue of well bridges is an issue. The issue of the port efficiency. For how long do you keep transit cargo or even domestic cargo at the port? How long does it? What is the cost? Immigration is an issue. Getting a work permit. What is the cost? Other partner states is zero. Other partner states is $3,000, $2,000.
Kenya and Rwanda it's zero.
Zero.
Yes.
So the process is different. The fees are different. I'm just looking at this example. I'm a maize miller. I want to put up a maize mill in Burundi or Rwanda or in Tanzania. And if I'm putting it in Tanzania, it is requiring I'm required to pay $3,000. So really, is that feasible for an SME? And these are the majority. These are the majority employers in the region. So I think there are so many bottlenecks. And another issue is the harmonization of domestic taxes. This is a critical issue if you are to increase intra-regional trade. I can give an example. In Tanzania, Tanzania right now, edible vegetable oil generated produced from locally produced raw materials is 0%. VAT is 0%. In other countries, it is 18%. So if you are to export your edible oil
to Tanzania,
you can't compete. There's a difference of 18%. Is that the common market we are talking of? So issues of harmonizing our income taxes, harmonizing our domestic taxes, the VAT taxes, it's a critical issue.
Mr. John Limba called before you came. He spoke about the common external tariff. He says Uganda, taxation levels are too high. He says you are too hungry for taxes. It touches a little bit about what you're talking about. Underline it for us a little bit more in more detail.
I think the common external tariff right now, the structure is a 3-band structure, where we have the finished products at 25%. We have the intermediate products, which is 10%. We have the 0% for raw materials and capital goods. But in addition to that, we have what we call sensitive products. I can give an example of a sensitive product in East Africa is the sugar. Sugar is 100% or $200 per metric ton. So it's a sensitive because you're looking at the employment being offered by the industries in that particular sector. You're looking at, there are so many other issues you consider. So I think that, given the condition, because Uganda, I think the highest before we went into the integration process, probably maybe the highest was 15 or 16%, but at least it was raised 25. But so I think the issue of putting it maybe at 25 is that to say there was a fear of revenue loss in the process. So how do you cater for that process? So I think the band and the Customs Management Act provides for a provision. The Customs Union Protocol provides for a review of the maximum CET, and this was done after 10 years, and still partner states maintain 25%.
All right. We have a question coming in via Facebook. Robert Magala says, why can't there be free movement of goods and services for some of them on a pilot basis as a precursor to political harmonization, especially those that largely form industrial imports? That is, for example, removal of cross-border screening for passports, common tariffs on agricultural imports, value chain structures and cluster mapping, and information for smallholder farmers across the region. Would you like to respond to that?
I think the goods now are moving in the region. Goods are moving. The duties across borders were removed. Although there was a period, there was a transitional period of 5 years, but right now goods originating from each of the partner states, they are moving freely. Apart from the domestic taxes, you have to pay domestic taxes, but the import duty has been removed. Services, when the partner states were negotiating the common market, they drew up schedules, the time frames on when to liberalize services. And if you look at services that you can categorize them in 4 bands. There is a service you consume from outside your country. If I come to Makere to study, I'm consuming a service, but I'm moving from my country of origin to another country. I can consume a service, I can supply a service, maybe a service can move when a doctor goes from Uganda and goes to Nairobi to treat a patient.
The service has moved.
Yeah. Yes. Radio 1 people can listen to Radio 1 when they're in Nairobi. None of the consumers has moved, but the service has moved.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you're looking at services, the modes, the 4 modes, you have to look at them critically and see. The partner states have agreed on a schedule on when to liberalize the movement of services. So gradually, some services are moving, teaching services. So the commitments are different, but at least we are optimistic that at least there's gradual liberalization of services in the region.
Let's talk a little bit more about sugar. Why is Ugandan sugar being blocked in Kenya, even though they have a shortage or a looming shortage, both in Kenya and Tanzania?
I think the blocking of sugar is not. I cannot take it as I'm looking at it as an administrative barrier, which is being put in place by, if you have to be specific, by Kenya. The issue is that if Uganda is importing sugar, which is supposed to be attracting 100% and bring it in Uganda at a lower rate because of the shortage we had in the recent times. There's an assumption that maybe that part of sugar, some of that sugar is flowing back to the Kenyan market to compete sugar produced locally. Those are the assumptions. So I think that what is required is the verification. Is the assumption right before you constitute such an anti barrier? Because such instruments do not augur well in terms of the integration process. Because you at one time you say free movement of labor of goods. At the same time you're putting up non-tariff barriers, and these are unilateral administrative measures. If you have a problem as a partner state, why don't you go at the regional level and say, okay, we suspect that sugar is moving from Uganda to Kenya, where it was imported at a lower rate than the actual CET. Then you handle such a particular issue at the regional level than distorting the whole market or distorting the whole industry.
So what would you tell a sugar producer? Why should they have faith in this whole regional integration thing?
Of course, the producers, if you look at Kachira, Chinyara, Madivani, and Lugazi, those are some of the issues which they are looking at. So, is this integration? Is it a reality? If we are still facing such hurdles, if someone just assumes and places an administrative measure to prevent my goods moving to move freely. So there are some of the issues, but I think there's a process which has been adopted at the secretariat level. Uganda and Kenya bilaterally, they are trying to sort out that issue, and I think teams are going to cross to Uganda, then to Kenya.
And you think it will be resolved in the coming weeks and days?
It might be resolved.
Let's talk about the Kenya election. They go to the polls on Monday. What can we expect? Are we ready for the worst?
If you look at, if you analyze the process the Kenya has gone through vis-a-vis what happened after the previous election, there has been a process of trying to iron out most of the issues which led to the violence which happened. The new constitution has been put in place. The private sector in Kenya has been at the forefront of trying to sensitize the masses as well as the politicians that anything happen, if violence happens, the impact is wider than what you think. So there has been a process, and we assume at the regional level also that process, the sensitization has been going on among the Kenyan population, and we assume that at least people have got the message, the politicians have got the message, and if you are to analyze the debates which have been going on between the candidates, they are all promising peace. And this is the issue. This is the issue we want.
We pray and keep our fingers crossed. Talk about the private sector. Let's talk about this meeting that starts tomorrow. The chief executive officer. What kind of meeting is it?
The history of this meeting, we originally the Secretary General has been hosting CEOs, the private sector in the 5 partner states through having a breakfast meeting. So we held meetings in all the 5 partner states. So we collected all the views, but the views in Rwanda might be different from what the views from the private sector in Dar es Salaam, because Dar es Salaam maybe because they have a port and Rwanda is a landlocked country. So if you are talking about the single customs territory, the views might be different. The stakeholders are different. So now we are bringing together all the private sector, the CEOs from all the 5 partner states. We are presenting the issues which were collected from the 5 meetings. So we analyze them, say, okay, I think in agreement, these are the critical issues we should address at the regional level in order to address the private sector development constraints. So after agreeing on the issues, then the issues will be presented to the Secretary General. No, for this particular time, these are the issues, these are the recommendations, and this is the time frame. We expect these issues to be addressed so that at least we can enhance the private sector competitiveness in the EAC region.
Let's talk a little bit about, there's a question that came in from Dr. Baleze. He says the East African community has lost the battle to put in place the implementation as they were agreed upon in the previous meetings on matters concerning security as agreed in Kampala in 2009. That's something you're confident talking about?
I can't be really confident about talking about such an issue issue of security. But at the regional level, the partner states have engaged in a process of trying to see peace and security, how they can engage. Now there's a process where the defense forces, the commanders or the heads of the security organs meet at the regional level, or the 5 partner states. The police are meeting, so the different governance issues, governance institutions are meeting at the region to look at peace and security from with the regional perspective.
Right.
So this is an initiative being taken by at the regional level.
All right, perhaps maybe before we go, talk to us about the community itself. What's your feeling, the sentiment in your heart, and for the people that you represent? Do we have enough safeguards to the collapse, or could we have a repeat of 1977, the East African community coming together and breaking apart again?
The difference between the current integration process or the community we have and the area one, this one is private sector driven. The area integration, the community was driven maybe politically, if I may put it in that context, politically. Right now, the private sector is at the center. Is at the center of the whole process, driving the integration process. The private sector is trading. People are moving. So the issue of collapsing, the only issue we have is the implementation of agreed upon commitments. Once the governments or the partner states implement what they have agreed upon, we want a full-fledged customs union. These are the issues. To address that, we need to move. But at least now, we're confident as a private sector.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to go. Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew Luze Kagwa. He sits in Arusha. He's the executive director of the East African Business Council. Thank you very much for coming to Spectrum tonight. I was expecting to join by Ambassador Dr. Richard Sezibera. He was not able to make it. He's a secretary general of the East African Community, and Mr. Gideon Badagawa, executive director of the Private Sector Foundation Uganda. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. It's the Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow after Exeter News.
Some say I was born to run. Maybe I was.